Upon meeting the new cook of the house, the millionaire was tormented upon seeing her earring, the same one his missing daughter had worn 20 years ago. In a majestic mansion located in the hills of Redwood Hills, Mr. Jonathan Redwood, a magnate with an enviable fortune, lives surrounded by luxury but tormented by a void that not even money has been able to fill: the disappearance of his daughter Sarah 20 years ago. His life changed radically that day. She was barely a 1-year-old baby, snatched from his arms during a walk in the main square. Despite an intense search, he never managed to find her. Since then, he has kept in a chest an earring that Sarah wore that day, hoping for any clue to her whereabouts. Mr. Jonathan, now a man with a weathered face and a melancholic gaze, deals with his pain in his own way. His mansion is full of employees, but he keeps a distant relationship with them, always taking refuge in his study among memories and photographs of his beloved daughter. One morning, Linda, his housekeeper, informs him that they have hired a new cook to replace the previous one, who suddenly resigned. "She's a very humble young woman, but she seems hardworking and decent," Linda comments casually. Mr. Jonathan barely reacts. For him, changes of personnel are a minor detail in his monotonous existence. However, when the young cook, Lucy, arrives at the mansion, something extraordinary happens. While serving him lunch in the main dining room, a detail catches Mr. Jonathan's eye: an earring gleaming on her left ear. It is identical to the one he has kept for 2 decades. His heart pounds. Could it be a coincidence? Lucy, unaware of the magnate's reaction, quickly leaves the room. For her, that earring is a memory from her childhood. It was the only object she had when she was found abandoned in a small church in a distant town. She treasures it more than anything, though she does not know its origin. That night, Mr. Jonathan, full of doubts and growing anxiety, makes a decision: investigate who this young cook really is. Something tells him that the key to an old mystery is closer than he ever imagined. Lucy's life was marked by profound uncertainty from the beginning, but also by a strength that unknowingly prepared her to face any adversity. 20 years ago, when she was barely a baby, she was found on the steps of a small church in Lakewood, crying in a humble basket. There was no sign of her parents or clues about how she had arrived there. The nuns from the nearby convent took her in and gave her the name Lucy as a symbol of hope. She grew up in the orphanage of the convent, surrounded by other children in similar situations. Although she received basic care and the nuns' affection, she always felt an inexplicable void. She often wondered who her parents might be and why they had not searched for her. Among the few belongings she had, she kept as a treasure the earring she was wearing on the day she was found. Although she was far too young to remember its origin, something inside her told her it was special. As she grew, Lucy stood out for her kindness and her ability to work hard. She knew that upon turning 15, she would have to leave the orphanage and find her own way, as there were no resources to keep young people there beyond that age. It was then that one of the nuns, Sister Catherine, helped her find work as a kitchen assistant in a small eatery in town. There, Lucy discovered her passion for cooking and learned the secrets of traditional local cuisine. Despite long workdays and harsh conditions, Lucy strove to improve her skills and save some money, always wearing the earring as a small talisman that reminded her that one day she might discover her true identity. Her life wasn't easy, but she never lost hope of finding a greater purpose. Over the years, Lucy managed to work in various homes, where she perfected her cooking talent and learned to adapt to different environments. Though she was young, her dedication and humble attitude earned her employer's trust. On one occasion, an elderly employer told her, "You have something special, Lucy, something that goes beyond your work. You're strong, even if you don't realize it." However, the world was not always kind to her. Lucy faced moments of sadness and loneliness, especially on important dates like Christmas or her birthday, when she saw families gathering while she could only imagine what it would be like to have her own. She often dreamed of unknown faces who might be her parents, but she always woke up with the same question: why had they left her? One day, while working in a small house in Clarksville, She heard an employee talk about an employment agency that helped young people find work in mansions and large houses. Lucy, always looking to improve her situation, decided to enroll. The agency was impressed by her experience and references, and it was not long before they offered her a position in a luxurious mansion in Redwood Hills. When they told her she would be working for Mr. Jonathan Redwood, a powerful businessman, Lucy felt a mixture of excitement and nerves. She knew it would be a great challenge but also a chance to prove her worth. With her suitcase in hand and the earring gleaming in her ear, she left for her new destination, never imagining that this place would change her life forever. Arriving at the mansion was a culture shock for Lucy. She had never seen such a large or luxurious house. The spacious rooms, the perfectly manicured gardens, and the corridors decorated with paintings and sculptures seemed straight out of a movie. Despite her amazement, Lucy focused on carrying out her tasks and following Linda's instructions, the housekeeper. Her first days were quiet. Lucy worked in the kitchen, preparing the dishes Linda instructed her to make, always ensuring everything was impeccable. She knew little about Mr. Jonathan, except that he was a reserved man who rarely interacted with employees. For her, he was just another employer, though one who seemed burdened by inexplicable sadness. One afternoon, while Lucy was cleaning kitchen utensils, Linda asked her about her past, something she rarely did with other employees. Lucy, used to such questions, explained that she had grown up in an orphanage and knew nothing about her family. "All I have from them is this earring," she said, touching her ear. Linda, though intrigued, didn't give much importance to the comment. The days passed uneventfully in Redwood Mansion. Lucy strove to stand out in the kitchen, surprising Linda and the rest of the staff with her ability to prepare traditional local dishes, from mole-style sauces to innovative creations with a hint of creativity that seemed innate. But what, for her, was simply a way to earn a living, for Mr. Jonathan was becoming a silent obsession. From the moment he saw that earring, his world was shaken. He spent hours locked in his study, staring at the small jewel in his chest, comparing it in his mind to the one Lucy wore. He was increasingly convinced that this was no coincidence. Yet he knew he needed more than a hunch to confirm what his heart was telling him. One afternoon, while reviewing old personal files, Jonathan found an envelope containing the police reports from the day Sarah disappeared. Memories hit him like a storm. He recalled every detail of that fateful day in the main square. The bustling market, the momentary oversight that had cost him 20 years of suffering. Those reports included a detailed description of the earrings Sarah had been wearing, a unique set he himself had commissioned, with the initials SR engraved on the back. That same night, Mr. Jonathan secretly hired a private investigator, an efficient and discreet man named Matthew, whose job was to find out everything about Lucy. He asked him to start from the beginning, where she was born, who raised her, how she reached the employment agency. Everything had to be documented in detail. While Matthew began his investigation, Lucy went on with her daily life in the mansion, unaware that her story was being dug up. One night, while she was making sweetbread for breakfast, she allowed herself a short chat with Linda. "Linda, what is Mr. Redwood like? He always seems so distant." Linda, who had worked for Mr. Jonathan for decades, sighed before answering, "He's a good man, but life has been hard on him. He lost his daughter many years ago. He's changed a lot since then. He was more cheerful before, but now he just focuses on his businesses." Lucy felt a pang in her heart. Though she didn't know the details, she could imagine the pain of losing a loved one. "It must be terrible to live with such a loss," she murmured softly, still kneading the dough. Days later, investigator Matthew returned with his first findings. He showed up at the mansion at night, making sure no staff would see him. In the study, Mr. Jonathan listened attentively while Matthew told him Lucy's story. She was found in Lakewood, in the atrium of a church, when she was only a few months old. There was no trace of her parents. She only had the earring. The nuns at the convent raised her until she was 15, when she began working as a kitchen assistant. Since then, she's worked in several houses before coming here. Jonathan felt short of breath. Every piece fit. Lakewood was close to where Sarah had disappeared, the earring was identical, the age lined up. But he still needed more conclusive proof. Matthew, I want you to confirm if that earring has the initials SR engraved. And if you can, get a sample of her DNA to run a test. I can't risk being wrong, he said resolutely. Meanwhile, the relationship between Mr. Jonathan and Lucy began to change. Though he tried not to arouse suspicion, he looked for any opportunity to talk to her, to get to know her better. One day, while walking through the garden, he saw her sitting on a bench during her break, the earring gleaming under the sun. He slowly approached. Lucy, do you like working here? He asked in an unusually kind tone. Lucy raised her gaze, surprised by the question. Yes, sir. It's a very nice place and everyone's kind to me. That earring you wear looks old. Where did you get it? He asked, trying to sound casual. Lucy touched her ear, as she always did when someone mentioned the jewel. It's the only thing I have from my past, sir. The nuns who raised me said I was wearing it when they found me as a baby. I've always thought maybe it belonged to my mother. Lucy's words filled Jonathan's eyes with tears, though he tried hard to hold them back. He excused himself quickly, fearing his emotion might give him away. That night, Matthew came back with important news. He had managed to see the earring up close and confirm the engraved initials. He had also taken a cup Lucy had used in order to get a DNA sample. Mr. Redwood, now it's all up to the lab results, he said before leaving. Jonathan knew the coming weeks would be critical. While waiting for the results, he could not stop watching Lucy with a mixture of hope and fear. If she truly was Sarah, how would he reveal the truth? And if she rejected him? Lucy, for her part, started noticing the special attention her employer gave her. Though it seemed strange, she could not help but feel something familiar in his gaze. The days felt endless for Mr. Jonathan as he waited for the lab results. Though he tried to stick to his routine, his mind was entirely focused on Lucy and what that earring represented. Each time he saw her pass through the dining room or the kitchen, his heart filled with hope and dread. How would she react if she found out the truth? Could she accept him as her father? Finally, on a rainy night, Matthew called Mr. Jonathan's study. The envelope with the DNA test results had arrived. Jonathan felt time stop as he opened the document with trembling hands. His eyes scanned the page until he found the words that would confirm or destroy his hope. 99.9% genetic match. Lucy is his biological daughter. A torrent of emotions overwhelmed him. Tears ran down his face as he clutched the document like the greatest treasure of his life. Sarah was alive. She had been under his roof all this time. However, after the initial euphoria, anxiety set in. How would he tell Lucy the truth? Was she ready to hear it? That same night, Mr. Jonathan summoned Matthew to discuss the next step. I can't just say, I'm your father, and expect her to believe me. The moment has to be right, he said as he looked out at the dark, rain-soaked garden. Matthew, always pragmatic, suggested that he first tell her about the earring and its connection to his missing daughter to prepare the ground. The next morning, Jonathan decided to act. He went down to the kitchen, where Lucy was preparing breakfast. The young woman greeted him with a shy smile, surprised by his presence in a place he rarely visited. Lucy, can we talk for a moment? Said Jonathan, trying to stay calm. Sure, sir. Is something wrong? She answered, drying her hands on a cloth. Jonathan invited her to sit at a small table by the window. Taking a deep breath, he spoke. I want to tell you a story. 20 years ago, my daughter Sarah disappeared. She was barely a year old. It was the worst day of my life. All that remained of her was an earring identical to the one you're wearing. Lucy's eyes widened in surprise, and she brought her hand to her ear, touching the earring she had always considered a simple keepsake from her childhood. Identical to mine? I didn't know that. It's no coincidence, Lucy, Jonathan interrupted her with a trembling voice. The earring you wear has the initials S. the same as on the earring I've kept for my daughter. I've confirmed that you are my Sarah." His words struck Lucy like lightning. She remained silent, trying to process what he had just said. He was claiming she was his daughter, that she was Sarah. It all seemed like an unreal dream. "Sir, I don't know what to say." "Are you sure?" "I don't remember anything from my past, only what the nuns told me. I always believed my parents had abandoned me," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. "I never abandoned you, Sarah," Jonathan replied, letting out the emotions he had contained for 2 decades. "They searched for you for years, but I never lost hope of finding you. And now, here you are." Lucy felt a whirlwind of emotions. On the one hand, the possibility of having a family filled her heart with joy. On the other, fear and confusion paralyzed her. How could she accept that her life had been a lie? "I need time to think, sir. This is too much for me," she said as she rose. She rushed out of the kitchen and headed to her room, leaving Jonathan with a broken heart but resolved to give her the space she needed. That night, Lucy could not sleep. She sat on her bed, holding the earring between her fingers, remembering all the questions she had always had about her origins. Maybe this man was telling the truth. But why did she feel so overwhelmed? She thought of her childhood in the orphanage, of the loneliness she had felt for so many years. Now someone was claiming to be her father, and her fear of trusting and losing the little she had built made her anxious. Meanwhile, in his study, Jonathan gazed at a photo of Sarah when she was a baby. He knew it would not be easy, but he was willing to fight for his daughter's love. The next morning, he decided to take a different approach. He prepared a table in the garden with the earring he had kept for 20 years, carefully placed in a small box. He called Lucy and, in a calm voice, said, "I don't want to pressure you, but I'd like to show you something." When Lucy saw the earring in the box, her heart skipped a beat. It was identical to hers, even more polished for having been so well cared for. The engraved initials matched perfectly. In that moment, she began to believe that maybe this man was telling the truth. Lucy held the earring Mr. Jonathan had shown her. The design, the initials, every detail was identical to hers. Her breathing quickened while her mind tried to process what was happening. Something inside her told her that this man was not lying. But accepting that her entire life had been an incomplete puzzle was overwhelming. This is too much," she said in a trembling voice, looking at Jonathan with tear-filled eyes. "Why did no one ever look for me? Why did I spend so many years alone?" Jonathan felt deep pain upon hearing those words, but he knew these were legitimate questions, born of years of suffering. He moved closer with a mixture of guilt and hope in his gaze. "Sarah, we did look for you everywhere. I hired the best investigators. I offered rewards. I turned the world upside down, but it was as if you had vanished. For years, there wasn't a single lead. But I never stopped thinking about you, waiting for you. Every day, I prayed that you were alive." Lucy looked at him closely, trying to find deception in his words. But she saw only sincerity and a pain that seemed to match hers. "I don't know how to feel. This changes everything I believed about my past. But I also don't know if I can just call you Dad so easily," she said, tears in her eyes. Jonathan nodded, understanding. "I don't expect you to do it right away. I only want you to know that I've always been your father, even when I wasn't by your side. Take all the time you need. I'll be here." Lucy rose from the table, still trembling. "I need to think, to be alone for a bit," she said, heading back into the mansion. The rest of the day, Lucy avoided Jonathan. In her room, she gazed at the earring she had always worn and the one she now knew belonged to a man who claimed to be her father. Everything fit, her age, the story of her disappearance, even the town where she was found. But accepting that someone had loved and searched for her all this time was as hard as accepting that her biological parents had not abandoned her. In his study, Jonathan replayed every word Lucy had said. Though he had waited for this moment for 20 years, he knew the path to reconciliation would be long. He decided not to pressure her, but he also understood that he could not remain passive. He needed to show her he was not just her biological father but someone determined to earn her trust and love. The next day, Jonathan decided to take a step toward Lucy without invading her space. He asked Linda to prepare a special meal in the garden. A dish he remembered had been her favorite when she was little, red pozole with freshly made tortillas. He checked old photos where Sarah appeared smiling with a bowl in front of her and thought a simple gesture might evoke some sense of connection. When Lucy arrived in the garden and saw the table, she could not suppress a faint smile. "This is a lot of trouble to go through for a cook, sir," she said nervously. "You're not just a cook," Jonathan replied gently. "You're my daughter, and I want you to feel that." Lucy sat at the table, still feeling out of place. She took a spoonful of pozole and, to her surprise, felt a familiar warmth. Though she had no clear memories of her childhood, something in that flavor stirred a sense of belonging. Jonathan watched each of her reactions carefully, hoping the wall between them might begin to crumble. "It's delicious," Lucy finally said. "But this doesn't change how I still don't know how to feel about all this." "I don't expect it to," Jonathan answered with a sad smile. "I only want you to know I'm willing to wait, and to show you that you've always been important to me." Days later, Lucy decided to visit the orphanage where she was raised. She needed answers not just from Jonathan but from the people who had cared for her all those years. She asked Jonathan to come with her, something he accepted with a mix of relief and nervousness. When they arrived at the small convent in Lakewood, Lucy was greeted with hugs from Sister Catherine, who had been like a mother to her. "Lucy, dear, what brings you back?" asked the nun warmly. "I need to know more about my past," Lucy replied, glancing at Jonathan. "Mr. Redwood believes I'm his missing daughter, and I think it could be true." Sister Catherine looked at them both with understanding eyes. "We always knew that someone must have been searching for you. That earring was the only clue we had, but we never found anyone who claimed it. If what Mr. Redwood says is true, then this is a miracle we've hoped for a long time." The nun's words soothed Lucy's soul. Though there were still many emotions to resolve, she began opening herself up to the possibility that she had finally found her home. After visiting the orphanage, Lucy started lowering her guard. Seeing Sister Catherine confirm the possibility that Mr. Jonathan was her father brought her a strange sense of peace. Though she still wrestled with her emotions, she began to see Jonathan not just as a distant, wealthy man but as a father who had endured as much loss as she had. Jonathan, for his part, devoted himself to showing Lucy more of her past. He showed her photographs of her mother, shared stories of her childhood, and even revealed the room he had kept ready for her in the mansion, a room that had never changed since her disappearance. "I thought one day you'd come home," Jonathan said as Lucy looked around the room, eyes full of wonder. The furniture was small, the colors soft, and there was a doll on the bed that seemed to have been waiting for her return. "It's like time stood still here," Lucy murmured as she carefully touched the doll. "For me, time stopped when I lost you," Jonathan replied. One afternoon, while they were looking through an old photo album, Jonathan pulled out a small diary that had belonged to Rebecca. "This was your mother's," he told Lucy. "She wrote here every day, even after you disappeared. She always thought that one day you might read it." Lucy took the diary with trembling hands. It was small, the pages yellowing, and it was full of words about love, hope, and pain. On one of the last pages, she read something that took her breath away. "Sarah, if you ever read this, I want you to know we loved you more than anything in the world. We never stopped searching for you. You are our light, our motivation, and I know that one day we will be together again." Lucy could not hold back her tears. The pain of having lost so much time with her parents was deep, but she also felt a new connection with them, as though they were closer than ever. The days that followed were filled with small gestures that helped Lucy and Jonathan build their relationship. He began involving her in aspects of the house, showing her that she was now part of his family. Though Lucy still worked as a cook, Jonathan made it clear she didn't have to. This mansion was now her home. "I want you to find your place here," Not as an employee, but as my daughter. But I won't pressure you. Take as long as you need, he told her one afternoon as they walked together in the gardens. Lucy, still adjusting to this new reality, answered honestly, "Thank you for not pressuring me. This isn't easy, but I think I want to try. I want to get to know you better and understand how we can build something together." Over time, Lucy became more comfortable calling him Dad. Though she said it timidly at first, it felt increasingly natural. Jonathan, for his part, saw how Lucy's presence filled the void he had felt for 2 decades. Both knew the past could not be changed, but they also realized they had a future to build, one filled with love, forgiveness, and new opportunities. Though the relationship between Lucy and Jonathan was growing stronger, the process was not free of tension. Both were learning to navigate a completely new dynamic. He, used to his solitude and dealing with his emotions in silence. She, used to being independent and wary of deep relationships. The past they shared was as painful as the future they were trying to forge. One afternoon, while Lucy was preparing tamales in the kitchen, Jonathan walked in with an unexpected proposal. "Lucy, I want you to come with me to a charity event in town. It's important to me that the world know you're my daughter." Lucy looked at him in surprise, almost dropping the knife with which she was slicing corn husks. "An event, Dad? I'm not sure I'm ready for something like that. I'm just starting to process everything that's happened." "I know, and I don't want you to feel pressured," Jonathan answered with an understanding smile. "But I think it's important to take this step together, not as a businessman and his cook, but as father and daughter." The word father still sounded strange in Lucy's mind, but it also filled her heart with a warmth she had never felt before. Yet her fear of facing the outside world, of curious looks and questions, made her hesitate. "Let me think about it, all right?" "It's a lot," she said. Jonathan nodded, knowing he must not rush her. But his request left its mark on Lucy, who began reflecting on what it would mean for her to fully accept her place in Jonathan's life. Staff at the mansion soon noticed the change in the relationship between Jonathan and Lucy. Some saw it as an act of kindness, while others murmured with suspicion. One of the employees, Clara, an older woman who had worked in the house for years, could not resist sharing her opinion. "Doesn't it seem strange to you that the boss is suddenly so attached to the cook?" Clara whispered to Linda one afternoon in the staff dining area. "Clara, don't poke your nose where it doesn't belong," Linda answered firmly. "If you knew the truth, you'd see there's more to it than meets the eye." Though Linda tried to protect Lucy from rumors, some comments reached her ears. During lunch, Lucy overheard 2 gardeners speaking quietly. "They say the boss is treating the cook like she's family." Imagine that. Must be because she reminds him of someone, or is it something else? Lucy felt a knot form in her stomach. The idea that people were talking about her and questioning her place in the mansion made her anxious. That night, she went to Jonathan's study to talk to him. "Dad, I think we need to clear up what's happening here. I don't want anyone to think I'm taking advantage of you or your position," she said, concerned. Jonathan set his papers aside, walking up to her with a calm expression. "Lucy, you don't need to worry about what others say. The truth will come out in time, and when it does, they'll understand you are my daughter, my family. I can't help thinking about what they would say if they found out I used to be just a cook here." "People can be cruel though, Dad," Lucy replied. "Let me handle that," Jonathan replied, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You're my priority, not everyone else's opinion." Meanwhile, Lucy continued struggling with her own internal emotions. One night, in her room, she was reading Rebecca's diary, her mother's diary, and came across a page describing the love her parents shared. At that moment, Lucy realized how much she wished she had known her mother and how that shaped her bond with Jonathan. She decided to open up to him in a way she had not done before. She went down to the study unannounced and began to speak. "Dad, sometimes I feel like I can't connect with you the way I should. I think it's because I always imagined that if I ever found my family, my mom would be there too. But now I know I'll never meet her, and it still hurts," she said, tears in her eyes. Jonathan, surprised by Lucy's honesty, felt deep sorrow for not being able to change the past. Lucy, I understand your pain more than you might think. Losing your mother was like losing a part of myself. But I want you to know she always believed in you, in your strength, and that one day we'd be together again. I'd love for you to help me keep her memory alive, Lucy replied. How? Jonathan asked, looking at her with curious yet caring eyes. We can do something together to honor her, maybe visit her favorite place or help people who are going through hard times, the way she would have, Lucy suggested. She nodded in agreement, feeling that for the first time, they were finding a way to heal together. Lucy decided to accompany Jonathan to the charity event, understanding that this would be an important step to show she was ready to accept her place as his daughter. That evening, as she got ready, she felt a mix of nerves and excitement. Jonathan, waiting in the foyer, saw her descending the stairs in a simple yet elegant dress, and could not help feeling proud. You look beautiful, Sarah, he said in a voice full of tenderness. For the first time, Lucy did not correct him for using her birth name. Instead, she smiled and answered, Thank you, Dad. I'm ready. The charity event, held in a prestigious hall in the center of Redwood Hills, was one of the year's most important. Politicians, businesspeople, and prominent figures in society attended to raise funds, and, of course, to show themselves. Mr. Jonathan had been one of the main benefactors for years, but this was the first time he arrived accompanied by Lucy. As they entered the hall, all eyes turned to them. Jonathan, with his imposing bearing and impeccable reputation, and Lucy, shy but radiant, holding onto his arm. The murmurs began immediately. Some found it a moving gesture, while others, unable to hide their skepticism, made malicious comments. Who is she? Asked a woman in a red dress to her companion. They say she's a cook he recently hired. But look at her. She doesn't look like an employee, the man answered with a mocking grin. Lucy felt the weight of all those stares, but held her composure. Sensing her discomfort, Jonathan gently squeezed her hand. Ignore them. It doesn't matter what they say. Tonight is for us. As they made their way through the hall, a middle-aged man approached them. His name was Philip Knight, a businessman known to have been Jonathan's friend in the past but whose relationship with him had cooled over the years. Philip had been around when Sarah disappeared and had even helped in the initial search. Jonathan, what a surprise to see you here. Who's this young lady? He asked, with an inquisitive smile. She's Sarah, my daughter, Jonathan said firmly, leaving no room for doubt. Philip furrowed his brow, clearly confused. Your daughter? Well, that you never found her. We did after many years. It's a long story, Jonathan said politely but distantly. Philip, however, could not hide his curiosity. He looked Lucy up and down, and something in his expression darkened. Well, I'm glad to hear you found her. But are you sure she's the one? Over time, illusions can play dangerous tricks, he said. The comment hurt Lucy, who up until then had tried to stay out of social tensions. I'm not an illusion, she replied calmly but firmly. I'm his daughter, and I don't have to prove anything to anyone. Jonathan smiled, proud of her courage, as Philip apologized clumsily before leaving. Even so, the encounter left both of them feeling uneasy. As the night went on, Lucy began to feel more comfortable. Jonathan introduced her to several friends and associates as his daughter, ignoring any murmurs or doubtful expressions. But just as they were about to leave, Lucy noticed an older woman staring at her from across the room. The woman, elegantly dressed but with a hard expression, approached them with determined steps. Excuse me, young lady, what did you say your name was? Asked the woman. Taken aback, Lucy answered, Lucy. Sarah, according to my father. The woman, who turned out to be an old neighbor of Jonathan's, leaned in and whispered, You look just like Rebecca. But you already know that, right? Lucy froze, not knowing how to answer. The woman continued, It's curious. I always suspected something strange about Sarah's disappearance. Rebecca was receiving a lot of threats before it all happened. Your father never told you about that? Threats? No, he never mentioned anything like that, Lucy replied, trying not to show how unsettled she was. How curious, said the woman with a frosty smile, before walking away. That revelation planted a seed of doubt in Lucy. What else had Jonathan not told her? Although she trusted his sincerity, she knew there were gaps in the story of her past, and now she felt the need to uncover them. Back at the mansion, Lucy could not contain her questions. She went up to Jonathan's study, where he was reviewing some documents, and stood before him determinedly. Dad, I need to know the truth. A woman at the event mentioned that Mom was receiving threats before I disappeared. Is it true? What was going on at that time? Jonathan set the papers aside, visibly uncomfortable. I didn't want to worry you with those details, but yes, it's true. Rebecca and I were going through a difficult time. Some of my businesses were being attacked by unscrupulous competitors, and we received some threats. But I never imagined anyone would hurt you. We thought they were just intimidation attempts. Lucy folded her arms, trying to take it all in. So, do you think my disappearance was related to your business problems? I'm not sure, Jonathan said, voice breaking. For years, I blamed myself for what happened. I thought if I had been more careful, if I had taken the threats more seriously, maybe none of this would have happened. Lucy felt a mix of compassion and anger. On one hand, she understood that her father had suffered as much as she had. But on the other, she could not help but feel her life had been shaped by decisions beyond her control. I want to know everything that happened, Dad. No more secrets. If we're going to build a relationship, it has to be with the truth, she said. Jonathan nodded, promising to share everything he knew, even though he feared that truth might open old wounds. Jonathan's words echoed in Lucy's mind endlessly, the threats, the possible connection to her disappearance, and the guilt he carried. While both made efforts to strengthen their relationship, Lucy felt it was time to resolve the remaining mysteries of her past. One morning, while Lucy was having breakfast in the kitchen, Jonathan came in looking resolute. I've contacted Matthew, the investigator who helped me find you. I want him to help us find out if those threats were related to what happened to you. Isn't it dangerous to investigate something so old? Lucy asked, a mixture of emotion and worry in her voice. Maybe, but we can't leave loose ends. If there's more behind what happened, I want to know. You deserve the truth, Jonathan answered firmly. Matthew arrived at the mansion that same afternoon, ready to reopen a case that had marked his career. I'll review the original files of the threats and look for clues that might have been missed. With luck, we'll find something concrete. While Matthew began his investigation, Lucy decided to seek answers in another way. She contacted Sister Catherine from the orphanage to ask if she remembered any detail about the day she was found. Lucy, the only thing that always struck me as odd was that you had a blanket with you, embroidered with some initials that didn't match the earring. The initials were RC. I never understood what they meant, but we kept it for years until it vanished, the nun said. That revelation left Lucy perplexed. Who had left that blanket with her? Could someone else have been involved in her disappearance? She decided to share this new clue with Jonathan. RC, he murmured upon hearing it. It makes no sense. Those aren't the initials of anyone I know. Maybe it stands for something else, like a place or a person we don't know yet, Lucy suggested. While Matthew sifted through the old threat files, he found something no one had noticed before, an unopened letter hidden among the other documents. The letter, written in hurried handwriting, was addressed to Jonathan and said, "We know who you are, and we know what you love most. This won't end until you pay what you owe." It bore no signature, but Matthew noticed something peculiar, a watermark on the paper indicating it had been written in a hotel in Lakewood, the same town where Lucy was found. This could be the connection we're looking for, Matthew said as he showed the letter to Jonathan and Lucy. If we manage to identify who was staying at that hotel at that time, we might discover more about what happened. Jonathan, though nervous, realized this investigation could lead them to uncomfortable truths. But he was willing to take the risk. "Do whatever's necessary to find out," he said determinedly. While Matthew investigated in Lakewood, Lucy and Jonathan spent more time together, strengthening their bond. One afternoon, they decided to visit the place where Lucy had been found, hoping that returning there might offer some clarity. At the church atrium, Lucy approached an older woman selling flowers. The woman seemed to recall the day Lucy was found. "You were so little, so helpless. But I remember something else. There was a man who left you there. I never saw his face, but I remember he wore a hat and had a scar on his right hand. After leaving you, he disappeared in an old truck. We never heard from him again." The description chilled Jonathan. He remembered hearing about a man with a scar in the past, someone who had worked for a rival company. That man might have been involved in the threats. "Maybe he's the one who took you away from us," Jonathan said, his fury evident. Lucy, though moved by the testimony, could not help feeling a weight on her chest. Why would someone leave her in that place? What did they want from her family? Days later, Matthew returned with crucial information. He had combed through the hotel's records in Lakewood and found the name of a guest staying there at the time Lucy was abandoned, Russell Carter, whose initials matched the blanket Lucy had mentioned. Jonathan remembered the name immediately. "Russell Carter worked for a company that tried to sabotage me years ago. He was fired shortly after you disappeared. I always thought he was behind the threats, but we never proved it." Matthew nodded. It's possible Carter was involved in the kidnapping, but it seems something changed his plans. Maybe he decided to abandon you instead of carrying out the orders he'd been given. Lucy felt a mix of relief and anger. Relief because at last they were getting answers, anger because her life had been determined by the actions of someone she didn't even know. "Where is he now?" Jonathan demanded, ready to confront him. "My investigation shows Carter is living in a remote town near Clarksville. We could talk to him, but we don't know how he'll react," Matthew replied. "We have to try," Lucy said firmly. "I want to know why he did this to me. I want to understand what happened." The idea of facing Russell Carter filled Jonathan and Lucy with determination as well as fear. Both knew this man could hold the answers they sought, but they also feared what he might reveal. After discussing it with Matthew, they decided to travel together to the remote town in Clarksville where Carter lived. Matthew warned them that Carter was known to be reserved and distrustful. "He won't talk easily, but if we manage to touch a nerve, maybe he'll tell us the truth." Upon reaching the town, they found Carter's house, a humble dwelling on the outskirts, surrounded by dry, neglected land. Jonathan and Lucy climbed out of the car with Matthew and knocked on the door. After a few moments, an older man with a visible scar on his right hand came out. "What do you want?" Carter asked in a rough voice, eyeing them warily. "We want answers," Jonathan said firmly. "We know you were in Lakewood the day my daughter disappeared, and we also know you were involved in the threats against my family." Carter took a step back, visibly surprised, but quickly tried to compose himself. "I don't know what you're talking about. Leave me alone." Lucy, unable to restrain herself, stepped forward. "I'm the one you abandoned at that church. You left a blanket with me that had your initials. You can't deny what you did." Carter's face changed upon hearing that. He lowered his gaze as if weighed down by guilt. "I had no choice," he finally muttered. "Years ago, I worked for a company that was losing major contracts because of your father," he said, pointing at Jonathan. "My bosses wanted revenge. They got information about your family and decided to hit him where it would hurt most. They ordered me to kidnap his daughter. But I never wanted to do it. I wasn't a criminal." "Then why did you do it?" Jonathan demanded, controlling his fury. "Because they threatened me," Carter replied in desperation. "They said if I didn't obey, they'd go after my own family. I just wanted to protect my children." Lucy, though moved by his fear, could not hide her anger. "And you thought ruining a little girl's life was the solution? Leaving me in a church was enough to ease your conscience." Carter nodded, ashamed. I couldn't hand you over to them. I knew they'd hurt you. So I decided to leave you where someone would find you. I thought you'd be safe that way. Who was behind all this? Jonathan pressed him. Who gave you the order? Carter hesitated before answering. It was a group of corrupt businessmen competing with you. They're no longer in business, but back then, they had power. After it all happened, I got out of everything to protect my family. Carter's words left Lucy in an emotional maelstrom. On the one hand, she felt rage toward the man who had decided her fate. On the other, she understood he, too, had been a victim of circumstances beyond his control. Jonathan could not help feeling responsible. All this happened because of me, he muttered, looking at Lucy with guilt. If it weren't for my work, my ambition— No, Dad, Lucy interrupted, this wasn't your fault. Other people's decisions aren't yours. What matters is that now we have each other. Visibly remorseful, Carter offered them an apology. I can't undo what I did, but I want you to know I never meant to hurt you. If I could change the past, I would. The least you can do now is make sure this truth isn't hidden anymore, Lucy said before leaving Carter at the door under the weight of his mistakes. On the way back to the mansion, Jonathan and Lucy reflected on everything they had discovered. Though the answers were painful, they also provided closure. At last they understood what had happened, and they could begin to heal. One night, as they walked through the gardens, Jonathan took Lucy's hand. Forgive me for not being able to protect you in the past. You don't need to ask my forgiveness, Dad, she replied with a warm smile. It doesn't matter what happened. Now we have the chance to build something new, something worthwhile. I want you to know this house will always be your home, Jonathan said with a trembling voice, and I'll do everything in my power so you never feel alone again. The following months, after confronting Carter, brought both relief and reflection. Lucy and Jonathan had found answers, but they also faced the emotional weight of it all as they worked to strengthen their relationship. Lucy noticed something, though, while the past had given them the pieces they needed to understand each other, it was now time to make decisions that would shape their future. One afternoon, as they organized a meal for the staff, Lucy approached Jonathan with an unexpected proposal. Dad, I've been thinking, I want to visit Mom's grave, she said. Jonathan, surprised but moved, nodded. It's the least we can do. She always dreamed of this moment, and I think she'd like to know we've finally come together. Days later, they traveled to the small cemetery where Rebecca was buried. Jonathan brought a bouquet of white roses, while Lucy held a small letter she had written. They knelt by the headstone bearing Rebecca's name, which glimmered under the sun, and shared a loaded silence. Hi, Mom, Lucy began, tears in her eyes. I know I never got the chance to meet you, but I want you to know that now I understand how much you loved me. Thank you for never giving up, even when you were no longer here. I promise to honor your memory by being the best version of myself. Jonathan, voice trembling, added, Rebecca, after all these years, I finally found our Sarah. I always knew you were watching over her from somewhere. I promise I'll never leave her alone again. Lucy placed her letter next to the flowers, and they embraced, a gesture that sealed not only their bond but also a symbolic closure to the pain that had haunted them for 20 years. The return to the mansion was marked by a sense of peace neither had experienced before. Lucy and Jonathan decided it was time to share the truth with those around them. They gathered the mansion staff, and in front of everyone, Jonathan spoke frankly. I want to thank you for all the support you've given me over the years. Today, I want to share something very important. Lucy is not just an employee here, she is my daughter, my family. After years of searching, we are finally together. Though surprised, the staff reacted warmly with congratulations. Linda, especially moved, hugged Lucy and said, I always knew there was something special about you. Welcome officially to this family. Over time, Lucy began to take a more active role in the mansion and in her father's business affairs. She decided to take administration classes to learn more about managing the charitable initiatives Jonathan had started in Rebecca's memory. Her dedication and passion inspired everyone around her. One afternoon, as they walked through the gardens together, Jonathan handed Lucy the earring he had kept all these years. "This was always yours. It's time you have it back." Lucy took it, and looking at it alongside the one she had always worn, she smiled. "It's like they're finally together, just like us." "That's right, my child. They brought us back together, and now it's up to us to safeguard this bond," Jonathan said. Lucy and Jonathan's story was not only a testament to resilience and family love, but also a source of inspiration for those around them. At a charity event, Lucy gave a speech that moved everyone. "When I was a child, I used to think I was alone in the world, but now I understand that even in the darkest moments, someone was always looking for me, always waiting for me. My father never lost hope, and because of that, today I'm here. This is our opportunity to show others that love can overcome any barrier." The ensuing applause was thunderous. Jonathan, standing among the audience, could not hold back tears of pride. And so Lucy and Jonathan's story reminds us that it is never too late to heal, to rebuild, and to find the path back home. If this moved you, subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who needs hope. Thank you for listening to the story to the end. Write your thoughts about it in the comments. Subscribe to the channel Tell Me and share this video with your friends and loved ones. This motivates us to continue working on new stories every day. Do not miss the next amazing story that is about to appear on your screen. We are very grateful to you for being with us. In the description under this video you can open the catalog of all the stories. See you there.